Hi everybody. Last week in chapter 20 of Living Nightmare, Tobin woke up to the sound of somebody shuffling around her room. Turned out it was Hannah, and she was in a trance. She told Tobin death waits before snapping out of it with no memory of what had just happened. To make matters worse, Tobin also finds out that she's having her first session with Dr. Owens and Miss Meredith. Now, I'll be reading chapter 21, and we'll see just what happens during that session. Chapter 21. She wanted to fit in, so when the popular girls told her to meet them in the woods at midnight, she ignored her inner warnings and went. They didn't show. Their boyfriends did, though. They laughed. She didn't. Dream Journal. Patience stared as she followed Dr. Owens. Their whispers made her jaw clench, but she stuck her chin up and pretended they didn't exist. The doctor led her to the exam room where Miss Mercy waited. The room's equipment had been moved aside to make room for his belongings. Tobin hovered in the doorway while he explained how he was sharing the room with Dr. Lynn until they found somewhere better. She bet Dr. Lynn loved that. Come in, Dr. Owens said, crossing the room and shutting the door behind her. Making sure I can't escape, she thought. Apprehension circled her like a vulture looking for its next meal. The moment she dreaded had arrived. They were going to scavenge her brain, greedy garbage pickers looking for secrets. Tobin swallowed, trying to dislodge the ball of anxiety that threatened to choke her. The room was tiny. There wasn't enough air for 3 people in it. It was too hot. Her hands dampened. She wiped them on her pants, looking at the doctor and the hypnotist. Weren't they hot? Why weren't they sweating? This place is like a sauna, she thought. She needed air. Outside would be good. The forest, outside her window. She needed to be there. Tobin moved back, bumping into the counter. Miss Mercy tilted her head, amused. There's no need to be scared, she said. You're safe with us. Her blonde hair was in a high ponytail, her lips painted pink. The pink was the same color as the flowers on the white dress she wore. Tobin stared at the outfit. Why was she wearing a dress? Not to mention the heels. Why wear crazy high heels at a mental institute? There were no runways for her to work. Like Patience cared about fashion? Tobin fought an eye roll. Dr. Owens made a noise. Tobin pulled her gaze from the heels. Would you sit on the table, please? He said it like she had a choice. She didn't. Her parents wanted her to give it a shot, she reminded herself. They wanted her to get well. She did too. Scrounging together a meager amount of courage, Tobin got up on the cold examination table. From the shelves mounted on the far wall, Miss Mercy took a thin pillow and laid it down for Tobin to rest her head on. Comfy? Asked the hypnotist, in a tone usually reserved for children. Panic kept Tobin from being insulted by the sugary tone. Her mouth was dry and her tongue felt grainy. Was that normal? She tried to sit up but was stopped by the doctor's hand on her ankle. She didn't like having to stare up at him. He studied her. Now, your job is to relax, he said. It's the first session. We're going to see what works best for you. It might take time before you notice a change, but not to worry. We won't give up. I was afraid of that, she thought. Just relax. Right. Easy. Not like you're going to put me under hypnosis or anything. Dr. Owens' attention went to the hypnotist. Meredith, could you pass me the electrolyte tube? To Tobin, he added. It's a special gel that'll help us keep track of your brainwaves. Oh, and the electrodes, please, Meredith. What? Tobin's heart raced. Electrodes? Brainwaves? Where was the swinging pocket watch she was supposed to follow with her eyes? Couldn't they use that instead? When the doctor smeared the cold gel on her forehead, she flinched. It was split on 3 sections, the temples, and just above the middle of her eyebrows. She shifted on the exam table, then stilled when the electrode tabs were placed over the gel. The tabs pulsed against her skin. Curiosity had her reaching up to touch one, but the doctor grabbed her hand. Don't touch. It's an EEG. Nothing scary. Try to ignore the equipment. He brought her hand back to the table. She curled her fingers until her nails dug into the fleshy part of her palm and stared at the ceiling. It would be fine. She was fine. Like you said. Nothing scary. She jiggled her foot. Come on already. Why weren't they starting? Miss Mercy moved to her right side. Tobin, I want you to close your eyes. Good. Breathe in deeply through the nose. And now let it out. She paused until Tobin obeyed, feeling stupid. Out of your mouth. Slow and steady. Yes, that's it. Good. And again. What was with the breathing? She wasn't in labor. Ridiculous, Tobin scoffed. Geez, really? Was this what she'd been afraid of? Miss Mercy using breathing techniques to lull her to sleep? Tobin! Miss Mercy snapped. Tobin's eyes popped open. Miss Mercy's face was flushed, her jaw tight. You're not listening. I need you to listen. I know you'd rather be elsewhere, but can't you at least try? Don't you want the nightmares gone? She stared at the hypnotist whose mouth was turned downwards. More than anything, she wanted to tell her. Instead, she closed her eyes. Stop fighting them. Do what she says. Tobin had to hand over the controls, if just for a little while. Dr. Dawson kept telling her to share her burdens. It was time she tried. Be brave. She took a deep breath and forced her hands to uncurl. Okay. That's a good girl. Miss Mercy patted her hand. Let's do some deep breathing. Remember, in through the nose, out through the mouth. All right? Good. Listen. Her voice changed. It became melodic, like she was singing. Focus on my voice. Erase all thoughts from your mind. In and out. Again. You're getting tired. So tired. Your muscles are relaxing. Melting. The tension she'd been storing inside her dissolved like sugar in hot water. Tobin breathed in. The air left her lips on a sigh. You're falling into a restful sleep. A calm, peaceful slumber. Good girl. Now, I want you to turn back to your earliest memory. Tobin felt a drift. Miss Mercy's words were fading in and out like waves against the shore. Are you there? Tell me. What do you see? Tobin's voice was thick with sleep, words slurring like a drunk's. I'm in my room. How old are you? Tobin stared at the thrashing form buried under navy blankets on a single bed. Her heart skidded. What was this? Where was she? She scanned the room and took in the familiar pale gray blue walls. 2 white bookshelves crammed to the max were against the far wall, while to the left of the bed was a desk with science paraphernalia. A white nightstand with 1 drawer and a lamp on top was by the right side of the bed. She knew the room. It was her bedroom at home. Did that mean? Her heart sputtered as she stared at the struggling form. Was that? Thin arms escaped the blanket trap, thrusting forward as if to ward off evil. The blanket was kicked off by scrawny legs before it fell to the floor. The girl on the bed was her, Tobin, at about 4 years old. She recognized the nightgown tangled around her body like bindings. The smell of sweat and urine was strong. How many times had a nightmare made her wet the bed when she was little? She stared at her younger self, shock encasing her body in ice. She watched as the 4-year-old's eyes opened, but Tobin knew they didn't see her room. Images of destruction, death, and pools of flames fueled by evil darted before her eyes. At that age, Tobin's nightmares were murky. Smears of black, gray, and red. The pain was real, though. Punches, burns, and cuts, she felt them all, even when she was too young to understand what they meant. Tobin shivered. She wasn't sure the fog nightmares were easier to shoulder or worse. Children's mind could weave endless threads of possibilities. She might not have known what the pain had meant, but she knew it wasn't right. Her 4-year-old self sat up, her small hands were fisted in defiance and the need to fight. Her mouth opened, and a guttural cry that left Tobin wondering if death had come for her. Tobin, what's happening? Are you still sleeping? The sing-song voice was out of place in her bedroom. She ignored it. The scream did not cease. Tobin twisted her fingers. Was she supposed to shake her younger self free of the nightmare? The bedroom door opened with force, causing the handle to smash into the wall. Her parents ran in. Her father's lanky form was dressed in a ratty brown robe with beige and red stripes. His hands dropped onto the child's shoulders. Tobin swore she felt the echo of his touch. Her hand cupped her shoulders, expecting to find his. She watched him cradle the fragile bones beneath his hands as he called her name. It triggered her into fight mode. Her child self curled her hands into claws. She scratched his face and neck with shocking fury. Her mother, covered in a floor-length beige nightgown, caught the flailing arms and struggled to restrain her. Her father yelled her name again and again, shaking her, but the screams continued. Tobin watched the scene unfold with horrified awe. This was what they woke to when she was a child? No wonder they brought her to Mendwell. She looked possessed. Her heart beat against her chest as she watched her mother's face harden. She shoved her husband aside, then without warning slapped child Tobin across the face. Crack! The scream cut off and was replaced with the melody of breathing. Heavy and uneasy wheezing came from young Tobin, while slow gasps slipped from her mother's mouth, and a gulp of air was expelled by her father in relief. The nightmare faded. The sight of her parents' faces had the little girl launching into the arms of her closest parent, her mother. Child Tobin's sobs saturated the room while her mother rocked her. Was it a bad dream? Her father brushed the damp locks from Tobin's forehead. Tell them about the dream, Tobin. The melodic voice crashed like cymbals through the family moment. Tobin frowned. I'm scared. Tobin sounded like a child, fear quivering her bottom lip. Can't move. The shadows are coming. Wanna hurt me, she whimpered and rolled onto her side to curl into a ball. Make it go away, please. Tobin, the syrup-coated voice sounded closer. You're safe here. It's just a memory. Nothing can hurt you. Take a deep breath. It'll make you feel good. What do you see? A puddle on the ground. It's growing, moving closer to me. Tobin let out a cry. Don't want to see no more. Make it go away. I'll be a good girl. Promise. Make it go away. I don't like this game. All right. I understand. I want you to walk out of the room. Walk out, and there'll be no more bad dreams. Tobin watched as her father carried her younger self to the bathroom where her mother took over. The soiled gown was removed before child Tobin was cleaned up and her father stripped the bedding. A clean nightgown was slipped over her head. Then her mother guided her to the bed her father had freshly made. Leave the room, Tobin. It's time to go, a woman murmured in her ear. Tobin tried to wave the annoying sound away. There was a flash. a spark of silver before darkness took over. Someone stood beside her. She couldn't see who it was, but she wasn't scared. She looked up, her 4 years of age making her much shorter than the stranger. When they held out their hand, she took it without thought. "Where are we going?" she asked. The person didn't answer. "Are we going on an adventure?" 3. Tobin blinked. "What?" She looked up. Miss Mercy stared at her. "Clinical study. Hypnosis treatment. Right." Dr. Owens stood by her feet with a strange expression on his face. "What happened?" Miss Mercy replied, "That's what I want to know." The doctor stepped forward and began pulling the tats from her forehead. When he was done, Tobin sat up and rubbed her eyes. Her face was wet. She cried. She felt her face grow in embarrassment. She looked back and forth between Miss Mercy and the doctor. "I don't understand." "Well, everything was great." Miss Mercy strummed her manicured nails against the edge of the bed. "And then it wasn't. You stopped answering me." "Why?" "She did?" Tobin scrunched her forehead. "I don't understand. It didn't work?" Miss Mercy pursed her lips. "It always works for me. I never fail." "Now, Meredith," Dr. Owens cut in, "remember it's the first session. Your bond with Tobin will take time." The frown Miss Mercy gave said she didn't agree, though she kept silent. "Perhaps Tobin can fill in the blanks." Tobin dangled her legs over the side of the exam table. She wanted to leave. What did she have to say to make that happen? "Yes," Miss Mercy stared at Tobin. "What do you remember?" The discomfort of being scrutinized had her fidgeting. Not much. You telling me to breathe?" She glanced at her hands, forcing them to rest unmoving on her thighs. She remembered everything. "Was I supposed to remember what happened?" Miss Mercy scanned her face for a sign. "No, it can happen, but rarely." She paused. "Nothing comes to mind." Tobin frowned. How would her past help her get well if she didn't remember the sessions? She didn't ask, though. She wanted to go. "No, sorry." A staring contest began between her and Miss Mercy. Tobin refused to blink, even when her sight blurred. Dr. Owens broke their concentration with a clap of his hands. "All right, then. Let's call it a day. We have another patient coming in an hour." He helped Tobin off the table. Miss Mercy opened the door. "We'll let you know when the next treatment is." "Oh, goody. I'll definitely look forward to that," she thought sarcastically. Miss Mercy stopped her from leaving with a hand on her arm. "If you remember anything, please let us know." Tobin just made it out the door before the woman shut it with a bang. Marie caught Tobin on her way to the bedroom. Tobin, just the person I wanted to see." "Great. Just what I need after that hypno session. An ambush." She contemplated pretending not to have heard, but came to stop with a sigh. Since accusing Marie of stealing her journal, Tobin felt uncomfortable around her. She took a breath, put on a neutral expression, and faced the head nurse. "You're not busy, are you?" Tobin hesitated before saying, "No." Would Marie accept that she was in dire need of a nap? Probably not. "Excellent. I have the urge to play cribbage." "What's cribbage?" Tobin glanced at a patient who passed them. The man gave her the finger. She glared and checked to see if Marie noticed. She smiled warmly at Tobin. "A card game," Marie tilted her head. "Never heard of cribbage? You can play gin rummy instead." "Is that another card game?" Marie shook her head. "Oh dear. Come along." With her hand clasping Tobin's upper arm, Marie led her to the common room, greeting passing patients and staff with hellos. Marie waved for Tobin to sit at an empty table before picking up a deck of cards from the bookshelf by the windows. She took the seat across from Tobin, removed the cards from their box, and began to shuffle with ease. Tobin watched the older woman's hands send the cards into cartwheels. and flips. She never looked down, too busy studying Tobin. Can't believe you don't know how to play gin rummy or cribbage. Marie shook her head again. Tobin shrugged. I don't play games. They don't teach you anything important. Marie looked stunned by the confession. What utter nonsense! Card games can be excellent math lessons. Be sure to tell your parents the next time they come. After a pause, she added, or maybe I will. Tobin smiled. She'd like to see that. An image of Marie lecturing her parents about the advantages of card games stretched her smile wider across her face. Marie chuckled. Focus. Your first lesson is about to start. She dealt them each 7 cards. Well, pick them up. Tobin gathered the cards in her hand. A mischievous sparkle lit her eyes. Marie didn't know it yet, but she was about to be beaten at her own game. That's the end of Chapter 21 to Living Nightmare, Book 1 to the Other Side of Gifted. Until then, I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.